Once you're pretty adept at playing all 5 scale positions in the key of E, it's time to extend your scale practice to include practicing in other keys. And that's what this lesson's about. When we were looking at the first position pattern in the key of E, we started out with a position that used open strings, like this. But this fingering, because it uses open strings, can only be used in the one key, the key of E. You may remember we mentioned the movable pattern with this fingering. This is a first position fingering that can be used in any key. As you can see, the first note played indicates the key you are in. So for example, still in the key of E, that's the position we used to play at the 12th fret. Because that note is an E, just as that note's an E. Now if we want to use that first position to play in a different key, let's take the key of G for example. We'd start it here at the 3rd fret. E, F, F sharp, G. So to play the key of G, we align our first finger with the 3rd fret, finger the first position pattern, and play up and down it like that. And if you want to play in the key of A, you'd start here at the 5th fret. That's a G there, we've got G, G sharp, A. And again, exactly the same fingering. We'll give you the blues scale notes in the key of A. Supposing I want to play in the key of C. A, A sharp, B, C. I'd start here at the 8th fret, because that's a C note. Now it may be that you're not familiar with how to name these notes up the fretboard. That subject is covered in another lesson on this site on the subject of the chromatic scale. Once you crack the chromatic scale, you've got a method to name any note anywhere on the guitar. So you get the idea. Whatever key we're in, the first position starts on that note. We can pick fairly obscure keys like C sharp, B flat. Doesn't matter. Any note, you can start the first position on that note and you're then playing in that key. Now, once you've located that first position, the rest of the positions just overlap from there really in the same way as they did when we practiced in the key of E. So for example, in the key of G, we'd start here at the 3rd fret of our first position. Then where this finger reaches, we put our 2nd finger and that will give us our 2nd position. And where this finger reaches, we put our 2nd finger again to locate our 3rd position. Where this finger reaches, we put our 1st finger and we've been to the 4th position. And so on. So all the drilling that you did in the key of E holds you in good stead for linking those positions together. Everything just shifts up by the same amount as you've moved the first position. Now, when setting about improvising using the key specific methods that we're learning on this course, you really need to be able to find any of these positions in any key. Now that's quite a task. If you think about it, 12 different keys multiplied by 5 different positions, that's 60 points of orientation to learn off by heart. But don't worry, so we're going to take you through a very tried and tested series of steps that will help you achieve this goal. By the end of this process, you will pretty much immediately be able to locate any position in any key. Now, the first step towards achieving this is to get into the habit of drilling the blues scale patterns through each of the keys. There's a whole section in the guitar gym part of this site devoted to that very subject, and this is exercise number 2.8, pentatonic scale drills. Strongly recommend getting over to that part of the site after this lesson and checking it out, because that's the fast track to achieving this. For now, I'm just going to give you a little glimpse of what I mean by drilling them through all 12 keys. So starting in the key of E, I play through all 5 positions. Then the key of F. F sharp. G, and so on through each of the notes in the chromatic scale, basically. Obviously that takes quite a few minutes, it's quite a long drill, but if you're serious about becoming a good lead guitarist, it's an essential one. Now, all the details on how to achieve that drill and the sort of shortcuts to learning how to do it are included in that guitar gym session. The only thing I will point out is the guitar gym session relates to the pentatonic scale, which is just one note different from the blues scale. So you might ask, well, why are we learning a scale with one extra note in? And that's what we're going to get onto in a minute or two. There are very good reasons for making the blues scale the first scale you learn, and they are also to do with orientation. We're going to look at that in just a second. Now, after this lesson, if you click on the printout tab on the toolbox to the right of the screen, you'll find a copy of this chart. So this chart shows you basically immediately how to find any position in any key. And of course this may prove a useful aid temporarily, but you can't whip the chart out in the middle of a performance when your band leaders suddenly turn to you and sprung a solo opportunity on you in the key of E flat or something. So we're going to learn another trick you can use that will help you orientate yourself on the fly. In each of the blues scale patterns, you will find at least one place where you finger 3 consecutive notes in a row. So for example, in the key of G, in the first position, we've got those 3 notes there, 3 notes in a row. In the second position, those notes are there. In the third position, they're here, and there as well. So you've got 2 sets. In the fourth position, they're here, and in the fifth position, they're there. So you notice they're on different strings in different positions. Here are these notes picked out in traffic light colours. Now the blues scale has a sort of unique symmetry about it. This means that these 3 notes are bang in the middle of the scale. If we look at just one octave of the scale pictorially, I think you'll see what I mean. In this diagram, our 3 notes are again picked out in traffic light colours. In each octave of the scale, this group of 3 notes is always just 2 scale steps away from the key note, regardless of whether you're going up or down the scale. Now that sounds a bit confusing at first, I know, but let's demonstrate what we mean. So, using the key of G to demonstrate, in the first position here, if I play 1 octave of the scale, that's from G there to G there, you can see that these 3 notes that we've marked in our traffic light colours are bang in the middle of the scale. So in order to get to the key note there, I can just go up that run of 3 notes and then go 2 notes further. So that's the run of 3 notes that are next to each other and then 2 further notes. Similarly, if I'm moving down the scale, I can play that run of 3 notes backwards, downwards if you like, and then 2 further notes on the scale and I'm back to my bottom key note. If I run now to the second position, again I find that run of 3 notes, go 2 further steps, and I can be certain that's a G, that's a key note. Likewise, if I run down the run of 3 notes, 2 steps further, that's a key note, that's a G. So if I'm playing a little bit of blues, I can play a G 7th chord, for example. You can hear how tightly that fits. So that's a really useful way of orientating yourself and finding key notes in any of these patterns. In this diagram, you can see how you can use this trick to locate key notes in any position and of course in any key. Spend a few minutes playing with that and you should start to find your orientation improving significantly. And this isn't just visual or physical orientation, it's also to do with hearing as well, oral orientation. Now, the usefulness of these sort of systems are of course somewhat dependent on the soundness of your knowledge of the actual names of notes on the fretboard, and that is something that's always good to improve on. To that end, I once again sort of recommend checking out the lesson on this site on the chromatic scale, and also if you head over to the Guitar Chim, there's a nice exercise called chromatic chanting, which sounds like some kind of weird religion. Perhaps it is, but I can really recommend that, it's great fun. The other thing to look at perhaps is the cage system. There's a lesson on the cage system in the theory section of this site, and that is a fantastic method of fretboard orientation. If all this seems a bit confusing right now, please don't worry. It is a big subject, and over the next few lessons we're actually going to take a number of different approaches to looking at fretboard orientation. And each of these approaches will help improve your sense of where you are on the fretboard in each key and each position. For now, the thing I recommend doing the most is simply to drill all 5 positions through as many different keys as you can stand. That alone really is the fastest route towards fretboard mastery. Okay, I'll see you in the next lesson.